Welcome to the Savvy Spirit Podcast. I'm Sharon Moore, your host and creator of the Savvy Spirit Entrepreneur Program. This podcast features conscious women entrepreneurs whose businesses are built on their unique gifts and are making the world a better place. You're going to learn about their journeys, their courage, their resilience, and their truth. So enjoy the show, feel the love, and get inspired. All right. Hi, everybody, and welcome back. So today we're going to be spending time with Dr. Laura Delizonna. Laura teaches people to thrive and to choose happiness through scientifically proven, evidence-based, and research-informed techniques. She's a Stanford instructor. She's on the faculty of 1440 Multiversity. She's an author, an international speaker, and an executive coach. So, the happiness expert, Dr. Laura Delizonna, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Sharon. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, Laura, how did this happen? I mean, you teach people to choose happiness. I find that so cool. How did you get here? What was your journey like?
Well, it's a big question. I really started this journey when I was 20 years old. I had dropped out of college and found myself on a very tall mountain in the Sinai Desert in Egypt. I had an epiphany on the top of that mountain at sunrise where I had this sense that I wasn't living my life at my full potential. I felt like I should be dancing through life, and an image of that sort of came to me. But I felt like I was trudging through life. And so in that moment, I made a pact to myself and the universe that I would find my way to contentment, is how I thought of it at the time. And that journey took me, and that intention took me to all corners of the world. I literally would ask taxi drivers, anyone, the opportunity that I had to ask them what their gems of wisdom were, what their keys to happiness, so to speak, were. Wow. I got a PhD in psychology on this same quest. And I really wanted to know, what are the skills? What are those things that we can do? Not that are wired in, not that are genetic or whatever, but where can we stretch into? Where can we grow into living our life at our best? And so that took me to basically the science of happiness.
And do you feel like there's been changes in the amount of science of happiness when you started this, a couple decades ago versus today?
Absolutely. There was not really a science of happiness back then. I looked for it high and low, and because I did not find an academic program that was studying that directly, I studied pathology. I studied clinical psychology, depression and mood disorders, anxiety, sexual dysfunction, even to learn what are those core skills that enable us to live our best life. In that journey, I found and learned a lot of those essential ingredients. And later, it wasn't until after I finished my graduate training that I re-specialized, essentially. I read every research article that had then become available on happiness, thriving, living your best life, and came up with what I thought my best thesis of what it takes to live our life at our best. My intention with this was to apply it to my own life, and at this point, to teach what I'd learned to others.
That is amazing. Wow. I mean, I know the reason I ask that is because I think today, it's amazing how science has come over to this side of the world of what is happiness and spirituality, etc. And if I was in your shoes, I would find myself really overwhelmed to try to now take such complex concepts into teachable bite-sized pieces. Do you find that?
That's what's exciting about this work to me. That's the creative piece. So I was trained as a researcher. I spent 12, 15 years researching well-being. But now what I do is I take what I've learned and what we're learning all the time. There wasn't a neuroscience, for example, of positive emotions back then.
Mm-hmm.
But now that's emerging. And so
Mm-hmm.
I'm taking what we are learning and how do we create transformation by creating mental habits and behavioral habits. That's what I find the most exciting about this work.
Wow. And so, how do you teach this? Is this done? I mentioned that you're at Stanford and at 1440. Do you do these things online? Is it in workshops? Is it in your books? Or is it kind of a compilation of everything?
Yes, it's a blended approach. So it's, honestly, what I find is it's most effective. There's nothing that substitutes for in person.
Yeah.
So really leading someone through an experience, whether that's one-on-one in executive coaching or in a classroom at Stanford or with an organization, we're, bringing me through an experience in a building block fashion. And yet, my next goal here, and I'm working on it right now, is an online course. This is the real challenge now. And also, it's exciting because if we can build an online course that works, not just inspires people, but transforms people, now we can have a broad reach all over the world.
Amazing. So, I saw on your website something about 3 Ws. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yes, this is my favorite technique. So the 3 Ws is a question. It's a very simple question, but it is a game changer because what this question does, and I'll tell you in a minute what it is, what this does is it shifts our attention and our focus from what's wrong to what's right. The 3 Ws.
Tell me more, people.
The 3 Ws are what went well. What went well? What went well today? What went well in the spectacular failure you just experienced? What went well in a conversation or a difficult meeting? You can also use this in the future. What do I want to go well? What do I want to go well today? What do I want to go well in this difficult conversation I'm going into or project? And there's a second part of that question that really adds the punch. That really makes the difference.
What is it?
It's what went well and what was my role in creating that.
And is it just as, oh, sorry, go ahead.
What that second question does is it helps us feel like, oh, what I do matters. And it's also instructional because that means that I can do it again.
And so do you recommend that we reflect on it as we're driving, or is it that we should sit down and really write this down and journal it?
Both. This is the power of this question is I suggest first you write it down. It's different from thinking, some people say we have like 50,000 thoughts per day. If you have one thought like this, it'll just get lost in the storm.
Right.
But if you write it down, it uses more parts of the brain, actually incorporates and it gets ingested and generalized in a way that just having a fleeting thought does not. Secondly, bringing it into conversations, bringing it into your reflections. Whenever I finish a difficult presentation or a project, I always ask myself, what went well? Because of course, even my mind is going to, what could I do better? What could I change for next time? And that's just natural. That's our negativity bias. And that's why this question is so powerful because it counters that negativity bias that we all have. It's survival benefit, safe than sorry. Don't get eaten by the saber-toothed tiger, right? But instead, now in this complex situation, environment that we are living in of collaboration and interdependence, we need to be asking, what's working? How can I create these bonds and so forth? And that is in the domain of positive emotions.
I love that somebody like you with a PhD, and obviously even as you explain it, I can hear the intellectual academic mind, and yet you have managed to feed it to us in a simple question. What went well? It's so simple, I can actually implement it in my life. I love it.
Yes, I have people coming back literally like 2 years after they'll attend one workshop and they'll say, you know what, I'm still using the 3 Ws.
Oh, really, honestly, Laura, that's the skill, is taking all the smarts, all the studies, all the stuff that you have swimming around in your head and making it, implementable for us on a regular basis. So
Yes, that's the goal.
a little praise for you.
Well, thank you.
So, and now you find yourself not just an expert in this, but you're a business owner at this point. This is what you do. And so I want to actually switch gears a little bit and look at this, entrepreneurial life that you now find yourself in. And what I like to do is hone in on the three areas that I teach in my entrepreneurial program and that I find are key to both success and fulfillment. And the three areas are building a business around your unique gifts. And the second one is some sort of alignment and trust in the universe. And the third one is a mindset towards those quote unquote straight up business skills. So let's look at each one of those for a couple minutes. So for you, what was it like to identify your unique gifts? And more importantly, how did you get the courage to bring those out to the world?
It's a great question. When I really look at what are my gifts around this, I have a sense that, and I've heard feedback from others, that I see these sort of complex behavioral patterns in the world. And what I found exciting and interesting is deconstructing them into the essential bits, to the essential building blocks. Mm-hmm. And so, there was a time where I was an academic and I thought I was going to go tenure track through the university. I was at Stanford. There was tremendous opportunity there. And yet I felt sort of weighted down. I didn't feel like I was actually using my gifts to my full potential. I was doing good work. I was bringing mindfulness-based practices and emotion regulation type practices into juvenile delinquent facilities, into juvenile hall. We're making an impact that was very positive, and yet I felt sort of constrained. I felt like I wanted to run through the halls of Stanford and, scream and dance and have more creative energy, so to speak, right? But I felt like I had to be contained. And there was a reflection point when I said, what I really want to do in life is have a positive impact in society. I want to transform the mindsets that are limiting and that create pain and suffering in the universe, in our world. I want to replace that with flexible thinking, with wise thinking, tapping into our own self-awareness. And how can I do that? I can do that through academia, through grants and research, and through the grant process, getting money essentially by doing that. Or it occurred to me I could become an entrepreneur. And I could create a program by consuming the research, still keeping the integrity of the program, but consuming the research and being creative, and then selling it essentially to the marketplace. And if people bought it, I wouldn't know why it was working for them, but I would know it was that they at least liked it and wanted it. Yes. And so I decided that I would leave it up to other people to do the important job of proving why it worked. And I would get creative because that was tapping more into my strengths I wanted to hang out more with artists and writers and idea makers that were not contained by the necessary small steps you take in research.
Wow, Laura. And I take it it worked. People wanted it.
People wanted it. Once I made that decision, and I'll tell you, it felt like I was leaving the church because in many ways, once you get out of academia, you can't go back. And I'd done all this work, to get at Stanford, and I was leaving it. But once I made that decision, it was the easiest thing I'd ever done.
Wow. That is huge. Because it's Stanford. I mean, that's not a small deal.
Yeah. So, I was practical still. I maintained my affiliation. I've been teaching there ever since. However, it's a side job. I teach on the side. I don't have the obligations. I'm certainly not tenure track faculty with all of that the things you must do. And yet I still teach there. I have the benefit of being in this fabulous institution and having courses. I've been teaching there for 12 years.
I don't know why this is coming to me, but I'm just going to say it. But you mentioned the word dance twice now in several of these pivotal moments for you, one on the mountain and one in Stanford. I just wanted to run through the halls and dance. This is your version of dancing, I take it?
I never thought of that, but yes. Yeah, it's playful, it's creative, it's zestful. When you're teaching people and even in the own inquiry in myself, there's a sort of passion and energy about it. And that's when I know I'm on the right track, when I'm in flow, when I am tapping into my heart's desire, my passion, what I think matters most.
Yeah. And you touched upon this, but I'm curious if this will resonate for you. But the second point that I always have so much interest in is, trusting in the universe. And that is both in those fun times where it's like, yay, the universe provides, but it's also when the universe gives you messages that you may not have wanted. For example, leave Stanford and go and do your own thing and become an entrepreneur. Can you tell us about a time where that you trusted the universe and moved forward into something that was unknown, maybe even uncomfortable, but you knew it was the right thing to do?
There have been so many of those moments.
Countless people.
There have been. And there wasn't always, it wasn't always a soft landing is the thing.
Yeah.
So, gosh, which one do I choose? I mean, there was a moment when I was almost ready to quit. I was a few years in teaching and training, creating these trainings, and and becoming a public speaker, professional speaker. And it was hard. And I still had this anxiety. And I was like, gosh, when am I not going to be anxious when I get up on stage and speak? When can I allow my personality and sort of that flow and funness to come out? And it was just like I was working on it and working on it. And every time I put so much effort into every single presentation, it would take me weeks to come up with just one hour of presentation or workshop. And then, and I was experimenting with new stuff. And I remember this moment where I was driving home from a speaking engagement. And I was like, man, this was hard. Like, it went well, but it didn't go fabulous. I was just like, man, this is hard. And I remember calling my mom. I called my mom and I said, you know what, Mom? If this does not get easier, I'm going to quit.
Wow.
And I don't know what I'm going to do because this is the only thing I want to do, but I have put everything into it. And if it doesn't get easier, then I'm going to have to quit. I'm going to feel like I should quit because, at some point it needs to have a little bit more ease and mastery in it. And so, I kept going. I wasn't quitting that moment. I kept going. And then something, clicked and I worked on the skills a little bit more. And then things did get easier and I did get some more traction. And so that proved to me, there can be these low points. And sometimes the right thing might be to not quit, but to pivot and try something else. And other times it's to persevere because you just maybe haven't given yourself a chance to learn the skillfulness that you need to be in that.
And so how do you know when it's pivot or persevere or quit? What's your tell?
Well, I'm always watching for what is working and when I'm in flow because I want this to be fun and interesting, right?
You want to dance?
Yeah, why not? Let's have fun and create great work at the same time. So if it's too hard for too long. So I was working in a startup for a couple of years and it started as my dream job. I was so excited. I was bringing in all this content. We were going to work together as a team. I'd worked rather solo for a long time. And I was like, yay, finally I get to work on this team. And it was a team of fabulous people. And then slowly that started to change. The direction of the company changed more into a direction I wasn't really that passionate about. Tried to stay with it. And pretty soon, my friends are noticing I'm stressed out. I'm like not sleeping well. And this isn't just a month or a day or a week, much less. It was going on for months. And I just started to feel drained and like this isn't really working. And then other people started to notice in my team that I was seeming a bit disengaged. And that was really interesting. It's like, oh, I thought I was the only person who noticed. And so then I realized that, maybe this isn't the path anymore. At one time it was, and now things have changed, and maybe I need to catch up to that. And then again, I sort of started to think of, well, what else could I do? How else could I do this? And then I felt this extreme urgency and excitement. And yes, I have this voice, I have this energy that wants to come out, and this isn't the venue for me to do it anymore. Mm-hmm. So I felt that pull in this other direction and the sort of fizzle in that direction. So then I made the shift. And again, it was yay, this was the easiest thing I did. It was the easiest thing to get in, and it was the easiest thing to get out, because it was time to get out.
Well, I again see that parallel for you. It's interesting. I almost feel like there's, you mentioned earlier, I just felt so constrained, and then I wanted to dance. And here's another moment of this constraint to dancing that you had. And that's your tell. You pay attention when you're moving towards this passion and when you feel kind of constrained and small.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. It is. It's that sort of constriction, and then also feeling into where is the pull.
Yeah.
And then feeling that there's this pull in this other direction, and that tells me, at least it suggests to me, that there's something more that I could be doing or different.
And here you are, an academic turned businesswoman. How was that transition? I mean, how do you deal with things like accounting and a marketing plan and a business plan and break even and P&L, and you get where I'm going here. How did you navigate that? Did you master it? Did you delegate it? How do you navigate that topic, the actual business skills?
Well, it's a combination. First of all, I'm highly practical and fairly strategic. So I know the direction I want to go in. I don't know perhaps what exactly that will look like, but I know the direction. And then I am a huge fan of hiring experts. So I don't assume that I can do everything. I don't want to do some things. I don't like accounting. I don't like the technical side so much. Not even a big fan of the marketing piece. So I will, as much as I can, throw resources at it, throw money at it, hire an expert. And I want to work with really great people, because I know that is a really good investment. Mm-hmm. So people who are not only nice to work with, because that is always there, working with nice, good people, but people who are highly skilled and have skills that I do not have.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I am not afraid to hire experts, people. I love that. Right? Better than breaking your back. And then guess what? That takes you away from actually giving your gift to the world.
Yes, that's a strong belief, is that I stay within my strength zone and I hire people when I am veering out of that strength zone. Mm-hmm. Also giving myself support. I've done so many trainings. I've done additional courses and workshops and learnings. There was a time when for a couple of years, I said I'll either be giving a course or taking a course. I took courses on magazine writing. I wasn't even writing for I never have, but I wanted to learn how to write and think like that. I took courses on becoming a professional speaker. What is a business of? I didn't know what I would learn. I just knew that I didn't know about that, and I wanted to equip myself with what I needed to walk the path I wanted to go in.
I am right there with you. I'm either taking a course or teaching a course all the time. Laura, people are listening and they want some action. They want some of Laura. They want your workshop. They want your book. They want to be your student. How do they find out?
Well, you can go to choosinghappiness.com and soon to be released delizonna.com. Another shift in direction, delizonna.com. And I have periodic workshops and retreats. For example, the 1440 retreat that I just gave. And there will be more of those emerging. I have a newsletter. You can sign up for the newsletter at choosinghappiness.com to get tips and practical approaches to increasing your well-being and thriving in life and in work. And reaching out through that newsletter, reaching out through whatever avenues on that website to connect. And I will have a online course at Stanford called Choosing Happiness. That will be an ongoing course. The first date for that will be in the spring of 2018, and we'll continue on from there.
Wow. Wow, you are amazing. Okay, well, I want to switch gears and start to wrap up the interview here. What I love to do is offer a moment for you to just take the mic, and if you have any words of wisdom or words of encouragement to our listeners, and just so you know, the people who are listening are conscious women entrepreneurs, and they may be in a moment, like you call it, a pivotal moment where they're changing their product or service, or they've started their business and they want to experience more growth, or they haven't even started and they're about to step in. Like, what words of wisdom or encouragement would you give them?
First is believe in yourself, tap into your strengths, know what your strengths are, and that is what the world needs from you. The second is, as we go about this path, we need to, I think, be practical. We need to think of, how am I going to maintain the lifestyle that I want? Where is my line with that? And create a sustainable plan. And sometimes, it might not feel so sustainable, but you have a plan and you know that you're going to be okay. I think it's important to really stay practical and take care of ourselves along this passion path. And the third is ask for help. Look for role models. Look for people who are doing what you want to do. And in my case, I didn't know anyone who was doing what I wanted to do. But I started talking about it, and I started telling people and friends, and when I was in meetings or conferences, I would come up with elevator pitches and putting some words on it, trying to find the words to articulate where I wanted to go. What I found from that is then people would say, "Oh, that reminds me of," or "I know this person who," or "you should take a look at this article or this resource," or "maybe you would like." So people would step in and give me these gifts that really helped and supported me along the way.
Mm-hmm. I call that alignment.
Yes.
All right, Laura, thank you so much for being here. I can imagine you have inspired so many people. So really the thank you for having the courage to do your work. And then, of course, thank you for being here and sharing it with all of us.
Well, thank you, Sharon. I also love what you're doing is helping all of us, supporting and encouraging, providing valuable information. So I'm honored to be part of that mission. Thank you.
Perfect. And to all you listeners, thank you for being here. It is such a treat for me to be able to bring this caliber of woman, this caliber of inspiration straight into your ears, which then goes into your heart, which then turns into action, and ultimately makes the world a better place. Thanks everyone for listening. I hope you feel inspired and connected and alive. And hey, if you enjoyed the show today, leave us a review. And of course, if you want more, you can find us online at thesavvyspirit.com or on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. All right, it is time to say goodbye, my friends. I wish you all a good night, a good morning, a good day, wherever you are on this earth. I wish you well, and I'll see you next week.